Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 23. Apart from the usual small jobs we do around the base, the main three focuses for today's will be the mall, which still needs stuff added to it. We will not do much, just the furnaces, but it will likely end up being a constant distraction for us from now on, and expand it as the need arises. The other thing will be the deconstruction of the starter base. It will be a slow process, and since it's a messy spaghetti, it will also be similar to the mall, and we will revisit it from time to time, and try to raise it down slowly. As for the third thing, well, I think it's obvious at this point. We will get started on our interstellar endeavors. Our logistics now have the capability of warping, so it is time to get going. Before we get started, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will let me know that this video was worth making. If you want to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them, and for a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. But enough talking, let's get into it. Since we now have a steady supply of drones, we can safely start giving every tower their own fleet of them. Instead of carefully inserting a couple dozen to conserve them, we can now just go and shove the full 100 in whenever we want. Now, let's quickly take care of the furnace assembly on the mall. It needs 4 components, the most we had to deal with so far. Yeah, that's only 3 chests. We'll add the 4th in a second. Maybe I should have gone with 2 belts on either side. Not that it matters much, just a small observation in hindsight. And we're out of bots again. If we are planning on using them a lot for this mall, we might want to set up their own individual assembly somewhere. Okay, that takes care of the actual furnace assembly. Now we just need the output chest, so we can automate the delivery. Well, we are struggling with certain things in the mall, like the broadband cables. Since we have everything we need to start finalizing the different production towers, we might as well do that too from time to time. And checking on the cables, it seems the problem is all down to the overall production capacity. We have the ingredients, but not the assemblers. Upgrading them to Mark III should help a lot. And we have a similar issue with the Deuteron fuel rods. We are really starting to use them a lot, and consumption is starting to overtake the production. We really need to keep on top of this, or we might be in a world of hurt. Before I do expand it, I wanted to see if the deuterium belt can keep up with the demand of this many assemblers. If it back up until the end of the line, we can safely add more. For now, we will just go with this. Simply upgrading to Mark III assemblers was enough to double the production capacity, adding more of them might not be necessary at this point. As I was looking at our titanium crystal setup, it was obvious what our next course of action should be. It is time to go and set up our first proper interstellar mining outpost. We only need to make sure we have everything we need before going. Because of the long travel times, we need to be prepared. Okay, time to look for a suitable destination. If I recall correctly, Lambda Leonis should have some organic crystals, which are our focus for this trip. And indeed, it has 2 million ready to be mined. I can't wait for this to get into gear. I really don't like making these crystals. Organic crystals are usually in the inner planets, since they tend to appear on planets with life. No point looking for them on the frozen outer worlds. But, since we're here, we should also pick up a batch of grading crystals, so we can keep making the advanced miners. Alright, our target is Lambda Leonis 2. What a lovely looking planet. Such a shame we need to start spoiling the view with our industrial monoliths. And it seems those 2 million crystals are spread around in 2 separate deposits. We just place a tower right between them, and get to work. Great. It's always a joy when we can cover the entire deposit with a single miner. As we get farther and farther out from the starting system, resource deposits get bigger, so we will eventually run into situations where we need to place 2 advanced miners for a single patch. For now, we just set the miner to full speed, place as many windmills next to it as we can, and that should do it. It won't go at full speed, but this is already a whole lot faster than making these crystals ourselves. Now, we could have simply used belts to move the materials into the tower, but you know what? Let's use drones. It will require a whole lot more windmills, but why not? We have a lot, and it's an excuse to use them. The tower is set to gather the organic crystals locally, and distribute them remotely. Basically, drones pick it up, vessels move it away. Now, we are not going to worry about leaving any vessels here. To allow them to make the trip, we would need to bring in warpers. We are struggling to keep up with the demand in the Olympus system. We can do this at a later date. Oh, right. We should drop off those grating crystals in the miner factory. They are better off being useful, rather than wasting space in our inventory. And speaking of miners, how about we go around and start replacing the old ones with the new? Most of these patches are close to being depleted already, but we might as well speed up the extraction of the last couple thousands. Well, this one might be a lost cause. It's completely boxed in by belts, and we have a logistics tower right next to it. Both of these could impact the placement of the mine, but still, let's give it a try. I think this is where we will stop trying. It's a bit of a lost cause. Now, I did get a bit concerned about the rockets. The turrets on Minerva are using a lot, mostly because we have a base right next to the polar ring, so we should try to boost the production until we can find a better solution. At this point, we have enough gas giant harvesters to fully populate an entire planet. I think we can get away with demolishing this battery factory. Our inventory was a bit cluttered, so I decided to dump some of the stuff we don't really need. In the mall, our current biggest shortage comes from the blue supermagnetic rings. Let's investigate what's holding those up. Well, it's the electric motors. Those have the components, just not the production capacity. Upgrading the assembler should help a bit. Well, at this point, I thought it was time for the next Interstellar outpost. This time, we are going for acid. And for that, we will need a good number of liquid pumps at the ready. I should get into the habit of going to the mall to gather the building components. The ring is not the best place for that, it's a bit too spread out. We might as well demolish the old furnace factory. We have a better one at the mall. Okay. We have all we need to set up the acid outpost. Let's see if we can find any in range. Our current technology only allows us to see the resource numbers inside a 4 light-year radius. And we have no acid anywhere in that sphere. I think our only option right now is to select a random system nearby, and use that as a staging ground for further exploration. Lambda Sculpturus. That should be a good enough place to start. That exploration range is centered around the Mecca, so if we move out, we will be able to see new systems. Okay, no acid in this system. Let's look around on the star map. There. The Myar system has acid. But there's bad news. The dark fog has a hive there. And even worse than that, they decided to put a lot of their outposts on the exact planet that has the acid. As long as we do things right, it shouldn't be a problem, but we need to be careful how we do things. Welcome to Myar 1. A desolate wasteland, full of acid lakes, and unfriendly dark fog outposts. I think I'll like it here. Before we land, we should look for a suitably big lake to build around. Most of them are tiny, barely worth the effort. This one looks like a good candidate. Plus it is at a decent distance from the enemy, that just makes it doubly good for us. So, Since we are in dark fog territory, we need to set things up with defenses in mind. Apart from the acid, we will also need to include rockets in the tower. Before we start pumping the lake, let's set up the turrets. We just place a ring around the whole place, and put the turrets on top of the belts, so they get a constant feed of ammo. And that's all the launchers we had. But they look densely packed enough to serve as a good dark fog repellent. With that sorted, we can do the pumps next. This is a bit of an annoying part. Since the lake is already tiny, we cannot really afford to make it smaller with foundations, so we need to deal with a highly irregular coastline. Well, let's go with that. Now we just need to belt them into the tower for delivery. That's all the pumps working. Now we just need a little bit of extra power to boost the efficiency, and to ensure that the turrets can actually shoot, and we should be okay. One last thing. We will definitely need a BABS. Over time, the dark fog will inevitably land some lucky shots, and to prevent a slow attrition, we need a way to repair things. Okay, the place is pretty much good to go. Only, it is still missing the rockets. The tower can accept them, but we don't have things set up back on Juno that would allow them to be delivered. Before we do anything else, we need to deal with that. We only need to add some warpers to the supply tower, and that should take care of it all. Without warpers, vessels will not attempt to make interstellar journeys by default. We could allow them, but that would be inadvisable. And the first vessel is off to deliver the first rockets to our outpost on Myar 1. There it goes. Seeing the logistics network taking its first step into the neighboring systems is always a momentous occasion. And speaking of interstellar logistics, how about we start importing acid, instead of making it ourselves? The titanium alloy foundry needs it, and if we give that tower some warpers, we should see a long line of vessels making that journey to Myar, instead of just a single one. And since we're here, how about we expand on this place a little bit? Only having 16 furnaces seems a bit low these days. Hold up. We have warpers incoming. Let's wait for it, I want to see the vessels taking off. And off they go. In hindsight, I wish I would have watched them from space, they do look kind of cool as they enter warp travel. But I'm sure we will see a lot of that later. Anyways, with all the excitement over, we can concentrate on the alloy foundry. Damn. I made the supply lines just a single tile too short. Well, I'm too lazy to fix that now, we will just have to make peace with having one less furnace on the outer columns. And look, we are now full of acid. The vessel's already made it back from Myar. Since I was here, and I noticed that the nanotube factory is a bit short on production capacity, I decided to expand that one too. It seems the plastic is struggling with the refined oil. Well, we could get rid of the old acid labs, but we will deal with that later. As usual, the green science was struggling with the graviton lenses. And that was because of the lack of strange matter containers. And to make more of those, we need particle colliders. And if you remember, making those is a bit of a hassle. They need a lot of very expensive materials to build. And this is where I noticed that some of the boxes were not set up correctly in the mall. Some of them were overloaded. Not really a big issue, we will use those materials eventually, but it's still not very professional. And the blue magnets were still struggling to keep up with the demand. This needs further investigation. This time, it was because of the lack of magnetic coils in the green turbine factory. Let's see what we can do about that. Well, it has all the materials, just not the production capacity. How about we finalize this entire setup right now? I still didn't have the calculators at the ready, so I didn't have the correct ratios at my fingertips, but we could do this without it. So, here's the basic idea about finding the correct ratios for an assembly array. First, we build more of them than we think we would need. Now, we let the place run for a little bit. The idea here is that if we have more assemblers than the belts could keep up with, an equilibrium could be reached. Over time, Things would settle into a flow that is entirely dictated by the belts. This means we will have active assemblers closer to the tower, and inactive ones at the ends. Once we can see the dividing line between those two states, we can determine how long those columns should be. Obviously, this is a very trial and error way of determining these sorts of things. To be really efficient, we would be better off using the calculators. Anyways, it seems the correct ratio for this setup is to have columns that are 5 assemblers long. It seems we had the correct number right from the start. Still, it doesn't hurt to check. At this point, this array is pretty much good to go. We just need to add warpers to the tower, and we could theoretically make a blueprint out of it, and start stamping down more of them if we need some extra magnetic coils on the network. From now on, we will try to do this with every single assembly array we are having troubles with. If we are short of something, we first make sure that the original arrays are working at peak efficiency, and then we use those as a template to make more. Well, the green turbines have the resources they need now. We can spend some time upgrading the array. Oops. The middle lane has gaps in it. That means we need to fix the other side as well. I think this amount of assemblers are overkill. Let's just assume I'm doing another ratio test. Yeah, let's go with that. Well, we are already well over time on the recording, but we had an impending attack on Myar. I really wanted to see if our setup could deal with the enemy. Okay, the rockets are loaded, the Babs is active. We should be okay, but I still wanted to give it a proper test. So I went and kicked over the hornet's nest. They turned around a bit too soon, but we still got some of them. It seems this place can defend itself against light attacks. To make sure we maximize the defenses, I decided to add a signal tower too. That will draw the enemy to it, making it the focus of their attacks. If the damage is concentrated on a single building, that should make repairs a whole lot easier for the Babs to deal with. Anyways, this is pretty much it for today. In the upcoming episodes, we will likely try to both convert old assemblies to the Mark III factories, and spend some time building new ones. I would love to set up a permanent titanium crystal factory, and now that we have a much more reliable source of organic ones, it should be a lot more compact. This also means we can safely start dismantling the old acid and crystal labs, those have outlived their usefulness at this point. And in turn, that will free up a lot of refined oil, making plastic production much more reliable. And of course, we will keep on disassembling the starter base. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will also help letting me know that the video was worth making. If you would like to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them. And if you want to give a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next one.